I've been playing Civilization since Civ 4 came out back in 2005, and I've played nearly every entry since. For a long time, Civ 5 was my most played game, until I found Paradox Games, please save me. Civ 5 to me was great, and even though it was super janky and had its own problems, it was perfect. Then Civ 6 came along, and I was kinda iffy with it. I really wasn't a fan of the changes. Districts, weird. Climate change, annoying. I'm going back to Civ 5. And then much later, I tried it again. And I may have pushed past some of the problems I initially had and found I put another decent set of hours into it. Now we come to Civ 7. And I was eager to see what they would change with this installment, but oh boy, I was not expecting this. Right off the bat, the civilization and leader choice is weak in my opinion. We have some familiar faces like Rome, China, and Spain, but they're missing some big nations as well in place of some stranger choices. Britain or England isn't an option, but instead I will have to pay for that as a DLC that comes after launch. That's outrageous. There's also no Gandhi, who I would say is pretty much a staple leader in I think every Civ game there has ever been. Even after you choose your leader, you choose another civilization for that leader so that you can combine certain buffs with others. But it feels like they're chasing after Humankind with this system, and we'll discuss that more later. We jump into the game, and it's a somewhat familiar start, but the thing I want to address immediately is the UI. It's been the biggest complaint on almost every review, and I can now see why. It's a mess. There are so many details hidden from the player, and it's quite hard to understand what exactly is going on, alongside just the horrible design choices, which I feel aren't unified at all. This section down here feels like a different team designed it compared to the team who did the diplomatic icons up here. You'll slowly realize the game hates telling you things, and it will not tell you the most basic of information. I've lost entire cities because one of the things that I feel is quite crucial to expanding a large empire is to know where barbarians are or other enemies are. Are they close to my troops or cities? Well, the game will not tell you anything until I've either lost the unit or the city. The notification system is just incredibly poor. There's no information down the side of the screen whatsoever. And there's loads of other small little issues with the UI that I feel could easily be fixed. Like you can't click on a city's nameplate to enter diplomacy with that nation or city-state. You have to click the city underneath. Unit health plates are incredibly hard to read, and they're so tiny compared to older titles. There's just so many small UI hitches that make the game hard to read or discern any kind of information that just make it feel like the game wasn't ready for release. Another big thing in this entry is the sprawling city design that is now in place. Rather than Civ 5's build it all on one tile and use builders to improve resources, or even Civ 6's district system, there are now no builders and you grow your cities across many tiles, turning into a massive sprawl by the end of the game. The problem with this system though is that you really struggle to discern where everything is, and the biggest part of this system is adjacency bonuses. So trying to work this out is infuriating. At least with Civ 6, I could glance at a city and say, oh, there's military, here's a science district, and so on. And that's all based on the color schemes of those districts. But with this, once a city sprawls out so massively, there's no real way of telling what's on each tile easily. You could scroll in really far and sort of discern that might be a temple, that might be a barracks, or that might be a factory. It just looks like someone scattered a load of Monopoly pieces across your screen because everything basically looks the same. Even a simple fix like colored roofs would solve this problem as a short-term fix. Just something that helps the player understand what's going on in their city and where buildings are placed. Another thing about cities is the new towns system. So instead of settling a second city and having it work exactly like your first city, it's more like an outpost. It doesn't use production to build buildings or units, you buy them with gold. That is until you pay a lump sum of gold to turn it into a fully fledged city that uses production and is basically normal. It's kind of weird, but it works better in later stages, as once you start settling distant lands and colonizing far away from your original home, it does make more sense to not have to focus on those particular areas solely using production or things like that. So you can sort of leave them and use them to tick up your trade and things like that. I simply use them to just catch capture resources and, send them back home. Let's talk about the other new system in Civ 7, the ages and milestones. In your game, you will play through 3 eras of development: antiquity, exploration, and modern. Each one presents you with a set of milestones and challenges to complete in order to build up score, and then finish the era with bonus points that give you additional buffs in the later stages. The biggest problem I have with this system is that it doesn't feel like it flows easily across these eras. And instead of one long Civ game, it feels like you're playing 3 short games back to back, especially with the fact that when you change civilization each era, you'll end up playing 3 different nations basically. And what really makes the game feel like it's split up is that every era change makes you sit on a loading screen so that you can change the game, which really puts the brakes on everything. Oh, also, you remember I mentioned that you could pay to turn towns into cities? Well, every era turns those cities that you paid for back into towns again. It's like the people in your nation go, whoa, hang on lads. I know this is the 2nd largest city in the country, but I think it's getting a little bit too big. Let's downsize, shall we? It feels really unnecessary. All these design choices, new mechanics, and countless other issues that I haven't even touched on yet, like a lack of real diplomatic choices, and the removal of victory cinematics it seems, or even endgame demographics for some reason. It sort of just ends and puts you on a level up screen and then pop, straight back to the main menu.
Qing's satellites dotted the night sky, as iridescent and inscrutable as flaming pearls.
There's nothing. The only victory screen I experienced was the ones at end of milestones, end of eras, and they're just really short, like 5-second, 1-sentence things. It's nothing. I know it's such a small thing, but I don't know, I kind of liked having those in Civ 5 and, Civ 6, and it just made the game feel a bit like, oh, I've done something. These all feel like Firaxis kind of panicked when Humankind was announced. It does really feel like they've attempted to chase the mechanics and gameplay styles of Humankind, regardless of how that game actually turned out, and they stuck to their guns for the worse. The sprawling cities, choosing a different Civ each era, completing milestones, all of it just points them to chasing Humankind to try and knock it off everyone's radar. Luckily for Civ, Humankind did that themselves by being rather crap, but even so, this game feels like it's plagued by the same issues and brand new ones that Humankind experienced, and it needs to be fixed before I can really recommend the game to anyone. Civ 7 doesn't really feel like a Civ game. It feels like an indie title that someone's tried to release and replicate with a Civ game, but failed? This game was clearly not finished by the time of release, which is evident by the numerous UI problems, ghost units that you see on the battlefield sometimes, and just general bugs everywhere. There are bugs everywhere in this game that just hinder your game every time. There's a lot of work that is needed on Firaxis' part to make the game comfortably playable, and if you do plan on getting this game anyway, even after everything I've said here, you'll just have to essentially forget everything you knew about Civ and relearn it from the ground up. And be prepared for the game to not really tell you anything on how the new mechanics work or anything like that. Although I would recommend you wait for a sale because the default pricing on this is outrageous right now, and it's definitely not worth the price point. The game by default, without early access or anything like that, is £60. But if you want early access and some extra DLC crap that comes with it, it jumps all the way up to $89.99. And then the Founders Edition, where you get slightly more DLC crap, is £120, which works out to $150. How ridiculous is that? It's almost like they saw what Ubisoft was doing with Star Wars Outlaws, and they thought, that's a good idea. We like that. But it's not. Seriously, using FOMO as a way of getting people into pre-ordering the more expensive editions of your game is not a good look. It's really bad in my opinion, and it just makes it not worth it. Justify your higher prices by putting more effort into your games. Actually have working games and, functioning mechanics and a functioning UI before you even think about charging $150 for your top tier edition. But regardless, I would say if you plan on getting it, get it, and don't try and experience Civ like you know Civ. Get it and learn it as a brand new game, because that's how it feels like right now. And if I was anyone else, if I didn't want the game right now, just literally you would have to wait a year before this game goes on deep sale, because that's usually how it goes with Civ games. I would wait for the game to be fixed, wait for the game to release more patches and DLC, and then you can get it, because that'll be the peak time to get it really. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this content, and if you want to see more, click the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. Check out the links in the description below for access to my Discord, merch, and much more. Thanks again. Bye for now.